Ladies and gentlemen, it is Ebro in the morning with Laura Stiles Rosenberg, and we just added a new person to the program. Rachel Maddow is back on morning radio.
Gonna make me wear the inflatable calculator suit. Go stand in the median. Come on down, get your tickets.
Wait, so what is your history in morning radio? You just told us that.
That was my first job in media of any kind. I was working on my PhD. I was a totally poor graduate student. I'd been doing deliveries, and then my car broke down. So I was like, what am I going to do now? There was an open on-air audition to be the sidekick news girl on the local morning zoo show. And
This is where?
This is in Holyoke, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Western
Right.
Unrated Western New England radio, baby.
Okay.
And I did my on-air audition. They had me come to the station the next day. I got hired on the spot and did that. That was my first job, and it was amazing.
What did that audition consist of? I'm just curious.
They were like, read this news story, okay, and then like the host, Dave in the Morning, told a joke, and I like made fun of him for the joke, and like I laughed, very important.
Yes.
And then B, I made fun of him for the joke, and then we started talking about stuff, and they liked me. And so it was a little weird because I had never actually been up at that time of day without just having stayed up from the night before.
Or being sober at that time.
Well, I can't promise, but it worked. The audition, it worked.
And how long did you end up doing that for?
I did that for 365 days.
Wow, okay.
And then on my 1-year anniversary, I quit because I had been working on my PhD, and it was time to I was done, and it was time to go back and defend it and get it done. And so I left. I was like, this was the weirdest, side job I've ever had. I was better at this than doing deliveries. See ya. That'll be something I never do again. And I left, and I did my dissertation. I got my PhD, and then 2 weeks later, 9/11 happened. And this was in Western New England, and we're outside of the immediate impact or whatever, but everybody in the country had changed their life. I had a lot of friends who lived in New York, and I just realized that weekend, I wanted to be back on the radio. And I had been the sidekick news girl. It's not like I had been this important voice of authority in Western Massachusetts or something, but I realized, everybody stopped playing music. Everybody went to all talk, all information, all the time. And I thought, the thing that I'm good at is explaining stuff. And stuff needs explaining right now, and people are doing, it was like blood drives and everything. Yeah. And the weekend after 9/11, I called a station in Northampton, and I said, I will come in and do shifts all weekend for free. Just, you remember me from your competing morning show, and we used to kick your butt. You can have me for free, and I will come on. And I started doing shifts then, and then the morning host did something impolitic at a remote event, which our program manager heard about, and I got hired on the spot and started the next day, got my own morning show.
No way.
Wow.
It's one of those things where, you go to a remote and your mic is live back to the studio,
yes,
but it's not live directly on the air.
And they
there has
left
to be
it on air.
They didn't leave it on air.
Left it on the room.
Okay, so it's supposed to be an intern back at the studio, hitting on air, off air, on air, off air for the host. Intern doesn't show up, so the general manager of the station comes in to ride the board and to run, and the host who's at the remote thinks it's her intern.
Oh my God.
And so she's sitting there talking smack about the general manager.
Congratulations. You played yourself.
And so the manager is just sitting there listening to himself getting trashed, and he eventually gets back on the return and is like, can you come in, please? Your remote is over. And then the other line was me, and then I started the next day.
Wow. And how long did you do that for?
I did that for a few years, 3 or 4 years. And then I came to New York City. I was working at WLIB when Air America happened, started that little glimmer of liberal sunshine in talk radio. And from there, I went to MSNBC.
It's a pretty quick ascent, though. It's interesting to hear that at 9/11, radio was just a little flicker in your imagination.
Yeah.
And now we're only 15 years after that, and you are one of the leading voices in the news media. It's pretty crazy.
It's pretty weird. I mean, that's nice of you to say, leading voices. I don't think of myself that way, but it is. I never wanted to do this as a career. It really was my side. I was an activist, and I was doing my PhD, and I was going to work for the ACLU, and I had this whole thing in mind that I was going to do, and this was a sidebar, and then I just fell in love with it. It was weird after my 9/11 experience was not a personal connection experience. It was the thing that made it clear to me what I wanted to do with my life.
When you had a desire to speak.
Yeah.
You had a desire to say, listen, give me this microphone because I need to help people understand, which I think we all kind of start in this game in a similar way of you know, I started wanting to play music. Like, I just wanted people to have a good time, and I wanted to be the conduit for them to have a good time. And then it became my opinion about the music.
Which
And
is
it
funny
became
because
my
no one
opinion.
ever thinks you want to have a good time in the world.
Never. The least good time. I'm the fun crusher.
Ebro, were you on the air on 9/11?
Yes.
You were doing mornings.
I was reporting the incident and thought it was just, I was like, at 6 a.m., I was on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon.
So right when your show started is
I
when
was
it
like,
happened.
what idiot flew into the world? Because remember, after the news came out that day, it was like plane hits. I was like, what a dummy. How would you do
You're
that?
thinking like, it's a Cessna. It's like a little private
right.
plane.
And then
These
you were like,
idiots.
oh, wait a minute. This was a Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, and then it just, from there on, it was just bad, bad, bad.
I remember I didn't have a TV at the time, and my dad was in California, and I was at home in Massachusetts, and I had heard it happening like on the radio, and I remember calling my dad, or my dad called me, and he's watching on TV as the tower falls, and he's telling me, he's like, oh, you know, he's explaining to me what's happening. My dad starts crying, and my dad's like this tough guy who doesn't start crying, and I said, it's okay, Dad, I'm sure they got everybody out. And he's like, no, they didn't. They really didn't have. They didn't have time to do that, and I just remember feeling like, oh, this is a different world than we thought.
Complete shift.
A complete shift. And okay, you know, everybody in the country thought, how do I help? How do I help? What can I contribute? How can I make a difference? The feeling that you have if you're not there immediately helping is helplessness. And as a human being, you don't want to feel that way. You want to contribute something. And I realized the way I thought I could most contribute was by explaining, by helping people get information out there. And that's how I knew I wanted to do that.
What a far cry from September 12th, 2001, where everyone was like, we're just American, to where we are right now in election season in 2016.
Where you have Donald Trump basically bringing out the ugly divide in our country, right? Creating a lot of passion. On the other side, you have Bernie Sanders creating a lot of passion for change, and for the change that I think we all feel is necessary to bring hope back to the lower class and to make people feel like they have an opportunity to become middle class and things to become affordable and they have a chance, right? Like that Bernie represents like, hey, listen, if we're gonna fix this, this is how we're gonna go about fixing it. And then you have Hillary and a bunch of other people kind of in the middle. Rachel, you are a staunch liberal, to say the least.
Yeah, capital L liberal.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself in voting? You're voting tomorrow in the primary.
I voted Massachusetts, so I already voted.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I won't tell you because it's personal.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
It's private. But I will say, I feel like if you are not a Republican, or even if you are a Republican and you're skeeved out by the Republicans,
Which I think is a lot of people, by the way.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
A lot of people.
I mean, in terms of maybe John Kasich would be different, but between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, a lot of Republicans will not be voting for either of those people if they're on the ballot in November. So I think there are some people, you know, there are Ted Cruz and Donald Trump fans out there, and they'll be happy. Everybody else in the country right now, looking at the possibility of Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, I feel like is a little bit spoiled for choice. You know what I mean? If you're at all liberal or if you're all centrist, you can imagine either of them as president of the United States and nothing bad happening because of that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And right now, I didn't know that would be my threshold. But the prospect of Trump being president or Ted Cruz being president, which is actually a little more scary to me, makes me realize, like, between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, that is a good fight. That is politics the way politics ought to be fought, between people who have ideas about not destroying the country, making it better, making it work for more people, and fighting it out about how to do it, how fast to do it, and how aggressive
Did you see their debate? You saw their debate in Brooklyn the other night, where essentially it came down to what you're saying. Hillary at a certain point was like, we're saying the same thing. Yeah. I thought she was going to turn to him and go, you know what, you might as well be my vice president. Let's just ride out.
Right.
And, like, then he would have said, and you could be my vice president.
And he would have said it like that. Exactly. Hillary.
Rachel, did you ever imagine a time, and I don't know if you had this experience, when you'd be sitting watching a debate, and it started out with Jeb Bush, where you'd be like, come on, Jeb.
I know.
Like, that is the crazy, and then even further than that, that was one thing, but I knew I didn't, like, hate Jeb Bush. To get to the point where I was like, Rubio, come on, pull yourself together. I was like, how bad a state of affairs is this when that is how bad it got? But why do you say, I have said the same thing, but from someone who's much more knowledgeable than I am, why do you think in some ways Ted Cruz is scarier than Donald Trump?
Ted Cruz is scarier than Donald Trump for a couple of reasons. Number one is we know absolutely nothing about him. So when Ted Cruz has won one election in his life to become U.S. Senator, he won it was in Texas, so it didn't matter in the general election. No Democrat was going to get that seat. So it was just about winning the Republican primary. There was a primary that happened like in May, and so like on a Tuesday in May, and like a couple 100,000 people voted for him. Like that was it. And then there was a runoff, which was on July 31st on a 93-degree day in Texas. Texas has like 13 million people. Like 600,000 people elected Ted Cruz. That's it. Nobody even, like that election didn't even like make headlines in Texas. Like he's only run for one thing ever. Nobody's ever even done oppo on him. He's come up through the super, super ragged edge of the right wing of conservative movement politics and has never, ever had to compete or even talk to people in a general election context ever. So he comes to New York and he's like, oh, New York values, you terrible people, and is surprised that people in the Bronx scream at him on the street. Like he has no idea. This has never occurred to him. This has never had to happen. His experience of New York is his wife working for Goldman Sachs, and that's it. That's what he thinks New York is. And
so not New York. So not New York.
The fact that New Yorkers can't even walk into the Goldman Sachs building is a sign that it's not New York.
Right.
Okay? I mean, walk in there. Just try to walk into that lobby. The Ted Cruz prospect, he's such a committed radical. And people say that Bernie Sanders is like radical and the Democrat. You know what? Bernie Sanders has been in public life and winning elections and doing stuff and like being being the mayor and all this stuff. I mean, Bernie Sanders was in Washington before Hillary Clinton got to Washington.
Yes.
He's a totally known quantity. We know exactly what he stands for, and he stood for the same thing since the 70s.
And he's interacted and operated and worked with tons of people on both sides of the aisle over the years.
And gotten stuff done. Ted Cruz is just like, Ted Cruz is completely different than that. And so that's the reason that I'm.
But what about what people would say that Trump? But they're like, well, yeah, but Trump is a monster and he's overtly racist.
He's a reality TV show guy who slaps his names on some buildings and made some money.
Trump is more of a known quantity than Cruz is, only because he's been a celebrity for so long. I mean, we can track all of the,
divorces and the wives and the kids and the money and the
people. I mean, however creeped out most people are by Donald Trump, there's a reason you're creeped out of him, because you know a lot about him.
Yeah.
And at all sorts of different levels of reporting, right? Business reporting, the stuff that's happened to him in the courts in his business life, the stuff that's happened to his courts in his personal life, all the lifestyles of the rich and famous crap that he's done. I'm sorry, a lot of it's really gross, but at least it's information, and I'd rather have the devil I know than the devil I don't, in a way. This is not an endorsement of Donald Trump.
Rachel Maddow endorses Donald Trump on Ebro in the morning. Whoa!
Calls him the devil, says she's into that. Maddow comes out as a Satanist and is now relieved of her duties at MSNBC.
That was fast. Yeah. Grand opening, grand closing. But I feel the same way. I think the really, I really don't want Donald Trump to win. I'm pretty confident he won't win, but I generally assume that if he was getting closer and closer and closer, you'd see him back away more and more from his crazier opinions, and you'd probably see him just try to fall in line and figure out how to do the job and survive. Cruz, I feel like he could get in there and be like, all right, it's my time to make things happen.
Exactly.
That's the part that really creeps me out.
Well, on that page with how much we love Bernie Sanders and the things he's saying. We've been having the conversation. We've had it on air. We've had it with Bernie. We've had it with anybody who will listen. Bernie Sanders' position isn't one, while we love it, because most of us are liberal on this program, presents a problem when you get to Capitol Hill of bringing people together.
Yeah.
Which we already saw with Obama when he got to Capitol Hill in his first term. It was bad for Obama. For a while, he had to cut deals and things that us that voted for him didn't necessarily like, and hope took too long and change took too long. And how's Bernie any different when he gets to Capitol Hill?
Yeah, it's interesting because what happened with Obama, really, at least I think, my opinion on it, is that he had high expectations of Republicans, that he thought, if I make a reasonable case and I make all sorts of concessions and I talk to them in their terms and I meet them on their ground, they'll come around and we'll be adult humans with the country's best interest at heart, and we'll do it together.
Nah, bro, you're black.
Yeah.
You're a black man. Try again.
The Republicans were like, we were waiting for you to think that, sucker, and then they just pressed every way that they could and never gave him anything. They never even gave him things that they wanted. When he started asking them to pass their own legislation that they had proposed, and they said, no, not if you want it. That was like, okay, give up on this.
Right.
And I think neither Bernie Sanders nor Hillary Clinton has those same illusions. Whether or not they had them before Obama, now I think they both get that
Everyone
diagnosis.
knows now.
Everybody knows now you are not going to be able to work with these guys unless the Republican Party blows up and becomes back as a different thing, which Donald Trump might do. I mean, he might destroy the Republican Party, and then some other party would have to grow up out of its ashes. And maybe that would be good.
Or maybe that'd be terrible.
Or maybe that would be an anti-democratic mess and we'd become like some dysfunctional European country that only has fascist parties and socialist parties. Who knows?
That's possible.
I mean, you look at Trump and try to compare him to something else. Like, what else is like Trump? And there have been celebrity candidates in the United States, right? Jesse Ventura was governor of Minnesota.
Ronald Reagan, for that, Megan.
Ronald Reagan, right? And Arnold
Arnold
Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
right? But then in Italy, the longest serving Italian prime minister since World War II is Silvio Berlusconi. Silvio Berlusconi is short Donald Trump. He's exactly the same thing. He was a media guy instead of being a real estate guy, but he was, and he ended up, his political legacy is going to be literally having sex with child prostitutes in his official residence, the bunga bunga parties and all this. Like, that's how it ended with Silvio Berlusconi in Italy.
That's right.
And then him still trying to like hold on to power and everything. Like, not just ugly, but like dystopian, apocalyptic, end of the world novel, end of politics bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what Trump will be like. Like you try to think about what else could be like this. It would be a totally unprecedented thing for Donald Trump to win that nomination. Whether or not he won the presidency, I think it would destroy the Republican Party.
Well, like with Reagan, you look at the comparison to Reagan, right? But Reagan spent time as governor, did a lot of political work first. Ventura is really interesting in his own right because, if nothing else, you could sense that his political aspirations were really real, right?
Yeah.
Like, say what you want about Jesse Ventura. I mean, now he's like off just being the crazy guy that he always proclaimed to be, right? Like, he cared about the issues. With Trump, it seems like this bizarro, narcissistic, crazed thing that I don't think he thought could go this far. And now he's making it up from this point on.
Yeah, it was like the next best thing for his brand.
It was.
He was
because
promoting
had-
the TV show.
Well, he had announced that he was stepping off The Apprentice even before he ran, and his kids were going to take on the show. And then in the weeks prior to that announcement, he started this presidential run, which I thought was just promo for another reality show or some other building of the Trump name. And then, like you're saying,
It worked.
spiraled into something else.
I mean, I'm totally with you in terms of the way it started. I think the thing that shocked him is that it worked. I mean, remember, so he announced at Trump Tower, comes down the escalator to the whole thing. One of the things people forget about that announcement is that he, as far as we can tell, paid people to be there. Paid
Hired.
actors, put out a casting call and paid people $50 to show up with a fake I support Donald Trump sign. That's how much he expected in terms of his real support. He thought he had to pay people to show up and pretend they supported him. But then the Republican polls go nuts. And people really do, Republican voters really want him more than they want all of the other options, and they had 16 other options. So the problem here, like, we can do the psychology of why Trump is running. I think the more important psychology is why Republican voters want him. And he's going to win in the New York primary. I mean, he's going to win in almost all the primaries that happen next week, if not all of them. He's probably going to, he's going to win. And the Republican voters are the mystery there, not him. And that is something, so when I talk about the Republican Party blowing up and coming back as something else, that is the part of it that's more interesting to me, not necessarily the leaders, but the people.
Do you remember the headlines about the amount of people who were re-registering as independents? There was a story, I want to say it was like 4 years ago, where there were people who weren't, there were more and more people being registered as independents. It was a growing thing, and people thought that maybe there would be an independent candidate at some point, and et cetera, et cetera. Do you feel that the people left still registered as Republicans, right? Are these people that are the ones, I mean, evidently are the ones that believe in this Trump thing? And after the Tea Party thing, because that's really what it was. There was this Tea Party movement. They were Republican. There was a lot of people who were like, I'm not okay with this. And they started to register as independents. Does it really speak to how moderate most of our country is? Because even as much as Trump is leading, he's still not beating Hillary toe-to-toe.
Right. And it will, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see come November. But in New York, it's interesting because you can't vote in either primary unless you're in either primary. And you had to have registered months ago in the primary in order to be there. And I think most New Yorkers, I mean, you can count the registrations or whatever, but most New Yorkers, like most Americans, don't think of ourselves as being totally allied with either party. Nobody looks at either of these parties and thinks, "Yep, that's me, up and down, right and left. That's everything I
You might
believe
be a
in."
staunch liberal. You're not a staunch Democrat.
Exactly. That's my case.
Yeah, me too.
I don't feel particularly partisan. I don't have allegiance to any candidate. I'm a liberal. I care about liberal policies, and that's it. I don't fall in love with people. But when Americans decide that the parties don't work for them and they register as independents, in one way it takes them out of the process, because the two parties are going to be who picks the nominees, unless we get another Ross Perot or something, which we didn't get this year. But other than that, I think it's a criticism of the parties by the people to say, listen, you guys are serving your own needs, but you're not speaking to us.
Because I'm a registered independent as well, so I don't participate until
the general election.
Until the general.
Yeah.
Does it, with your job being what it is and being on MSNBC, well, this is two parts. First part, do you ever get frustrated? Like I, for example, am such a liberal that I don't watch much MSNBC. I already agree with almost everything that's being said, so I'd rather check out what the other guys are saying, right? Do you ever feel like you're talking to too many people who
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, preaching to the choir too much?
No. And the reason I don't is because of the best part of my job, which happens at my news meeting every day starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's me and my whole staff, everybody all the way down to the interns. And the best part of my job is when we figure out what we're going to cover that night, when we look at the universe of news in the day and make a decision about what's going to make the best show and what's going to sort of our motto on the show is increase the amount of useful information in the world. So if you're a liberal and you have liberal Facebook feed and your Twitter feed is all people saying back to you things that you agree with or whatever, I'm not going to tell you those stories. I'm going to pick other things that you might not know about, which should inform your view about what's important in the world right now. And so I feel like my job is to literally tell people stuff they don't know, but also to do it in a way that makes sense.
And secondly, I'm guessing, this is not really based on quantitative research, but I would assume that you being sort of the face of liberalism that you are, this smart, uber-educated, news, lesbian, everything that you are.
Dork.
Yes. Liberal genius. I'm guessing there's vitriolic hate out there. I'm guessing you do get your share of shit out there. And here, my question is, you seem so happy and you know you're doing good. Like any of us know who watch you. This is a good person who wants to do good in the world.
Thank you.
But still, are there days when it adds up, when you see the articles written by these nasty people that you're like, Jesus, do people just know I'm just trying to do a good thing?
You know, it's funny. When I started in morning radio in Holyoke, Mass, like the inflatable calculator suit and the whole thing, like they literally used to put me out in traffic on the median. And
I was the Jam and Salmon. Don't worry about
Okay.
it.
Jam and Salmon.
Jam and Salmon, baby.
I love that.
So you know what that's like. And I've been out my whole life. I came out before I turned 18. Like I've never lived life on this earth as a person who was closeted. So I don't even know what that part of it's like. But there's a certain amount of being out and outspoken and being a woman and being gay and all of this stuff that makes people want to send you, misspelled all capital letters death threats. Like that just happens. And that's happened since the first day I ever did anything publicly. And it's just like,
She threw in misspelled so she could just let you
know.
know that.
Oh, no, just know. A lot of it is misspelled. Just know.
If you don't know what the caps lock key does, you also don't know how to spell aren't. Trust me. But it just, it's sort of a low hum in my life, and it waxes and wanes depending on what's going on in the world.
So you can have if a particular story happens to flare up, though, you can have a day where it's more annoying than other days.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what is the most annoying thing. It's actually right now in a big, hard-fought primary right now, like between Hillary and Bernie. I get 50% hate mail saying, you are such a Bernie partisan. And I got 50% hate mail saying, you are such a Hillary partisan. Like, I really am impartial between them in terms of the way I talk about this publicly and the way we cover it. And I'm totally honest in saying that I think Democrats are spoiled for choice. But people who know who I am, who care what I think, who are in broad agreement with what I'm doing, who do not think I'm a monster, who then are willing to like throw all this trash at me about how I am not serving their candidate's desired outcome. Like that's just exhausting.
It's exhausting. And you're like, I'm getting it from the other side, so it's obviously not true.
Like,
you're obviously doing the perfect job.
Yeah.
Which is why
read my other Twitter mentions around yours, which are people who are just as passionate about you, saying completely the opposite thing.
But aren't you happy that there's passion right now? Like, I keep bringing it up so that we don't lose sight of, if there was no Trump and there was no Bernie Sanders, what would this primary really be like?
I've seen more young people involved this time around than I've had in a very long time. Even
Well,
me, I
since
was-
Obama.
Yeah.
And you know what? I thought it was going to be the world's most boring primary because we all thought it was going to be Hillary with no competition and Jeb Bush. Remember, it was going to be Jeb Bush. He raised $100 million before anybody else sneezed, which is how his brother got the nomination in 2000. George W. Bush raised so much money in 2000 as the governor of Texas that everybody else who was going to run got out of the race.
Oil Saudi money that they've been stacking on since the 60s. You know what I mean?
But it was their shock and awe fundraising, right? And it scared everybody else out of the race. And that was what Jeb was going to do in 2016. He raised so much money, and instead it had the opposite effect. He raised $100 million, and then like Jim Gilmore got in, and Carly Fior. Who are these people? Everybody started running. And he ended up being among the weakest of all of them. So we thought it was going to be so boring and so cooked, and it's ended up being so fascinating on both sides of the race.
It's a brawl.
It's
a brawl.
And it feels important. The prospect of Donald Trump getting that close to the presidency is a galvanizing thing. That is a wake up and pay attention thing. And I've always felt, listen, I'm a liberal, but I've always felt like I have a lot more in common with somebody who's conservative and cares than with somebody who doesn't care. Like, if you care about politics, even if we care about it for different reasons and you care about it in a different direction, we're going to have more to talk about, and we're probably closer as citizens than somebody who doesn't care if Donald Trump's president or not, who doesn't have an opinion about
how
it.
could you not care about
Exactly. And so apathetic people right now, I think, are about to get lonely.
All right, so you say you get along more with someone who cares about politics than someone who's totally apathetic. Have you ever gotten along with, had a conversation, been in the same room with, let's say, an Ann Coulter? Like, how would that conversation
I
go?
don't
Or has
even
it gone?
believe that woman's real. I think she does it straight for a troll, but that's my
yeah,
own opinion.
me
I'll
too,
leave that
possibly,
alone.
but I'm curious.
I have long had a theory that she is an art project. It was the same. Remember when Carl Palladino ran for governor of
Yes.
New York City, or governor of New York? And the stuff that came out about him, it was like, oh yeah, he doesn't just send around porn on his giant email list. It's like porn of people having sex with animals with Carl Palladino's commentary on it. And he's the Republican nominee for governor. Seriously? I thought that was an elaborate art project, which was going to be unveiled by some brilliant Bronx artist has put together a composite character of America's worst fears. Right? No, it turns out it's Carl Palladino. I think Ann Coulter's kind of the same thing.
You think it seems like one day we're going to find out it was some science project and someone's like, let's see how America reacts to this.
It's going to rip off the latex mask, and it's like some incredible street artist.
It's going to be like a Brooklyn hipster. It's like, I knew I'd get you guys to pay attention.
That's funny.
So people who are art projects, I don't end up talking to.
Okay,
but,
got it.
But in my work, I try to talk to Republicans won't come on my show anymore. I mean, every once in a while I'll get a Republican, but Republicans running for office won't come on my show. But I try to get them to talk to me off air to be my sources in terms of reporting, because I get liberals. Liberals will talk to me. Democrats will talk to me.
Of course.
But I have to go out of my way to cultivate Republicans and conservative sources to talk to me. And so I have a lot of those sources off air, even though people won't be seen with me in public.
That's so crazy. Yeah. That is so insane. One of the reasons I had been requesting you to come up here was your breaking and taking to the mainstream of the lead in the water of Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
And since that story, obviously, the world has ran in there and tried to do whatever we can to make sure these people are getting the water that you would think in an American city people would have access to. Much of the politics and the governor deciding to do this, and you can't convict someone serving as a civil servant for crimes, because I forget what the law is called, where you can't convict them of a crime while they're serving office if they think they're doing the right thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But also since then, we've also discovered that Newark, New Jersey has lead in the water. And I speculated some time ago that we were going to start seeing more and more of this about the impoverished cities in America not having the right infrastructure, and lead in the water contributing to childhood behavior, which also contributes to adult behavior problems, which contributes to you being in jail, right? When you broke that story, did you know what you were, I guess, the hornet's nest you were stepping on and the thing you were opening up to us?
The Flint story is, I think there's two things that are key to understanding what happened in Flint. And one is that it's not like the other lead poisoning problems that exist in Newark schools and in other cities around the country, and there's been these other places. Not that, lead is lead everywhere, and it's a neurotoxin, and It affects you when you're a kid, and it affects you your entire life. They're even saying it can change your DNA, basically, and affect you intergenerationally, so that your kid, if you're exposed as a kid, your kids, when you have kids, are going to have consequences of that. I mean, it's bad. But Flint is different because Flint, the reason I was covering it, the reason I was the first national news outlet to give it sustained attention, is because Flint has this radical law where if your town is poor, and mostly in Michigan, it's almost all black towns that this has happened to. If your town is poor, they can say, you know what, your local elections where you elected a mayor, city council, whoever, we're overruling them. You no longer have locally elected officials. The governor is going to appoint somebody to come in and take over and run your city as an individual person, and your local elections don't matter.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
That's why my eyes were on Michigan, is because they had that law in place. And all of these black towns in Michigan
have lost control.
Lost control. Their local elections, they're allowed to have them, but then their mayor and city council don't have any power. The governor just puts somebody in charge. It's called an emergency manager law. Super scary.
What other places have this law?
Nah.
Just Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, other places have like little versions of it or whatever, but the one that's this radical, it's just Michigan. So that was already going on in Michigan. And there's this like a little black town, beautiful town called Benton Harbor that's like got this beautiful shorefront property. We had covered that because the emergency manager came in and was like, oh, your little public park here, your shorefront property, we're going to turn that into a golf course, and none of you are going to be able to afford to.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, bad stuff. So Flint's under emergency manager. The city council and the mayor are not making the decisions. It's just this guy appointed by the governor who only answers to the governor. He's like the dictator of the town. That's who made the decision to screw up Flint's water. Flint has a lot of problems. Water was not one of them. It was not like the infrastructure slowly going bad and nobody paying attention to maintenance or anything. They like flipped a switch, put corrosive water through there without treating it. That was never supposed to go through that pipes that no normal town, no normal water treatment plant would ever do. They ruined all the pipes. That's how they lead poisoned those kids. It was flipping a switch and doing it on, like, not on purpose.
And it was under the guise of saving money?
It was like the emergency manager's there because Flint's poor, and they've decided, the state governor has decided that they are not allowed to manage their affairs anymore because they're broke as a city. And so, in theory, it is about saving money.
But but like the specific decision to flip the switch.
It was idiocy. So they're in the process of changing their water from Detroit to this other water authority or whatever, and they've decided they screw it up. Basically, they just make a dumb policy decision where they're like, oops, we've arranged to cut off our old water supply before the new one's ready. Well, let's do something in the interim. Let's take this Flint River water. And then they didn't treat it. They put it through the water. They put it through the pipes. Had they treated that water, it would have been fine, but they just didn't. They just skipped a step. And it's like, it was an act of commission. This was not just like somebody forgetting to do something or neglecting Flint. It was, they made a decision when they flipped that water, they poisoned the town and they ruined the pipes.
But therefore it's intentional though.
It's at least somebody's fault.
Come on.
It's an act of commission. It's somebody did, the state, that's why people are so mad at the governor. Because this isn't the town screwing up. Had the town been left to its own devices, Flint would still be screwed in a lot of ways, but it wouldn't be screwed this way. They wouldn't have lead poisoning. It's because the governor took over, put somebody in charge, and that's who made that decision. So that's why the accountability is so specific there. That's the first thing people don't get. The other thing that you need to know about Flint is that for all the attention now, it's not fixed. And what they need to do is get the ruined pipes out of the ground and replace the pipes. It wasn't just they got poison water. It wasn't like the Flint River was terrible water source and that's what people started drinking. If they had treated that water, it would have been fine. They didn't treat the water. That ruined the pipes, ruined the infrastructure, and that's where all the lead's coming from. It's not lead in the river. Lead in the pipes are coming into people's...
So it would require this, I'm guessing, massive operation to get all these pipes removed and replaced?
Yeah, it's about $3,000 or $4,000 per house. There's 30,000 houses in Flint. About half of them are occupied. You could do them 2 a day, 3 a day. You could get it done. And the mayor has started doing that with like little bits of money that she's cobbled together here and there, and union pipe fitters helping her out. But it's like the school's holding a bake sale. Like it's this little tiny cobbled together local effort where they're doing 1 or 2 houses a day and trying to find money each day.
And now people would say, okay, well, where's Obama? Where's this woman? Because it's at the state level.
The state did it. And the state is sitting on a $500 million rainy day fund. Like they've got spare money.
So what the fuck?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't understand. But Obama can't demand that they do it?
Well, the EPA is in there, like they're plugging along. You only got so much federal authority to do this sort of thing. I mean, they could, I guess, declare a federal emergency and martial law, maybe, and go in and take. I don't know.
That's setting a crazy precedent.
Yeah.
What happens to the money that they've raised? I'm just curious. Like, I've heard that the so-and-so raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. What happens to all that money?
A lot of, there is
For Flint.
Well, a lot of it was buying water.
exactly,
A lot of it was just buying water. They needed water immediately.
A lot of the donations, but people are still on bottled water now. Like you've ever had the water go out in your house? You got to like brush your teeth with bottled water and everything, and you I don't know, figure out somewhere else to take a shot. Like, imagine living that way for 2 years.
Yeah,
we're up on 2 years of that now. That cannot be sustained. They still do not deliver water door to door in Flint. Like, all of these water distribution centers that the governor has set up that he brags on and everything, that means you got to go down to the fire station, get your allotted 1 case of water. A lot of people in Flint don't have cars. Case of water is an expensive thing, and it's a heavy thing. You need one of those every single day for 2 years. You're supposed to walk down to the fire station and get. This was not Flint's fault. This was done to them by the governor, and the governor is like, "Yeah, go pick up your water. We'll see if we can get donations for it."
What about the senior citizens? What about the single mothers?
Exactly.
People who can't do all that.
Disabled people,
Yes.
and there's a lot of pockets of Flint that are really, really poor, and that people are really, really off the grid, and people don't necessarily they aren't watching the local news and getting information about how. So it's not better. And the one thing that's good is that the people in Flint are really good activists, and there's the doctors who exposed it and stuff are nails, like really, really good. And the flintkids.org and all that stuff, that's for real. Like, they're doing the money raised for Flint for those community foundations is good, is well raised, and is going to go to good stuff. And those kids are going to need monitoring and help their entire lives. But the fact that it's still not fixed, that there's no door-to-door water delivery, that the pipes aren't getting fixed, and that's the part of it that makes me. You can tell I'm mad talking about it right now. I'm furious.
So what is happening though? What is happening?
She's telling you nothing.
Nothing.
And
I think that's the part where we live in a country where we believe, and we are in most ways the greatest country on earth. Yeah. But this right here, the reason it's so perplexing is we can't even imagine that this is happening in America. That's hard to imagine.
And now that we know about it, we're still not making it better.
And powerless.
It's one thing to be like, how come we haven't heard about this? Or why isn't this a bigger story? Okay, now it's a big story. Now that it's a big story, does that mean we can fix it? Like, the fact that, like, the governor of Michigan this week was like, we need to have tighter lead testing standards for Michigan. And we should replace these lead service lines all over the state within the next 15 years. No. People live in Flint right now who are suffering for this for 2 years. Like, you have either you need to evacuate that city, or you need to fix it, and you personally need to fix it before you resign. Is
he going to resign though?
No, he's not going to resign.
And he can't, and no one can take him to task for making this decision.
You want to hear the craziest Michigan story of all? So there's that emergency manager law that lets him come in and take over. The people of Michigan recalled that law. They were like, no, even before Flint lead poisoning, they were like, no, we got to get rid of this. This is crazy. They recalled the law. The Republican legislature and the governor then repassed the law to make it even more aggro, and they passed it in a way that it can't be recalled. And then they changed the recall statute, which makes it almost impossible to recall any other law or any elected official. So right now, it used to take like 100,000 signatures to get a politician on the ballot to be recalled. For Rick Snyder, it's 800,000. They've made it basically impossible to recall people, in part because people tried to get rid of that crazy law.
That is insane.
Michigan is before Flint happened, Michigan was the most radical Republican governance in the country. And that is the kind of thing when I say I like my job because I get to figure out what to cover. I was the one nationally covering that, and that's why we had Eyes on Flint.
That's so crazy.
Have you ever thought about that? Maybe sometimes when you do like your big story, and like you've had some classic ones over time that have been amazing, like will make their way around the liberal Facebook world. Have you ever thought about having like a black chick in the background, or maybe like a crew, like we get Scotty Beam. You could even be there too,
I'll
bro.
be in the back.
And I'm Black Girl Chat all day. And just to yell like some preach and some take your time. Take your time,
you need a congregation. That's
she needs a congregation sometimes when she's up there preaching.
Maybe like a little choir.
Yeah, you need a selection.
Doug, people accuse me of preaching to the choir. No, I'm preaching with the choir.
Rachel, I wanted you to talk about, I heard that you broke the news when the mayor of Mississippi passed that law, that discrimination law for small businesses. And I was talking to my little sister's openly gay. We were talking about it. And to me, I feel like not enough people are talking about this insane law where you could easily be denied service because you're openly gay.
Oh, you can put up a sign in the window of your business that says we don't serve gays here. Or you can put an ad saying we're hiring, no gays need apply. That's legal now. They've gone out of their way to make it. I mean, it's legal.
It's almost so insane.
I don't know.
You have to
Crazy.
laugh.
Hold on,
But
I
that's what I'm
almost said
saying,
the
like,
same thing. Is it bad that I almost laughed when you said it because it's the most absurd
Because it
thing I've
doesn't
ever heard?
seem like it's real. It's 2016
I know.
and
it's
this
like-
is happening.
No, this is America. We don't do that. You cannot do
guess
that.
newsflash, it's happening.
I mean, and in lots of places, I will say, in lots of places that is legal. There is no national anti-discrimination law that protects gay people and trans people. It doesn't exist. They've tried to pass it. Both Bernie and Hillary are in support of passing it and everything, but they've never done it. But in Mississippi, they have just gone out of their way to tell people, when you want to do this, we've got your back. We'll make sure that this, and nobody can pass a local discrimination law. Like in North Carolina, it says nobody can pass a non-discrimination law that makes that illegal. If you, in your little liberal town, like Asheville, North Carolina, you want to pass a town that says you can't put up a sign that says gays need not apply in your business, no, the state overrules you and won't let you do that.
But how do they justify that? They justify it through religious beliefs?
Yeah. They say it's oppressing Christians unless you do that.
But it's still discrimination. That's not oppress discrimination.
I don't understand.
I'm gonna give you a choir robe.
I don't understand.
Dad.
Why do I have to care about someone's why does their religious belief impede on the way that I live my life?
Well, if we were going to be non-discriminatory, it would just be non-discriminatory.
Yeah.
Right.
All around.
Because you can, I've seen them. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone signs. I've seen that. Where you walk in and they don't like you, they can say, hey, we don't serve you, asshole, or whomever. Your beard's too long. Your hair's too long. You
Or
don't have
no
shoes
shoes,
on.
no shirt, no service.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
shirt.
I'm supportive of
Service.
I'm supportive of the no shirt situation for the most part.
And shoes.
The shoes.
Shoes too.
Well, now you guys are discriminating.
That's right. I am discriminating against barefoot diners.
Exactly. I don't want you. You know what? I'm fine with that one.
That is my form of bigotry.
Yeah.
That is
Listen,
the-
guys,
Wear shoes to the restaurant,
as
please.
you can see, this is a slippery slope.
I was going to say, build a wall. Build a wall. Stop the barefoot people coming off the
Exactly.
boardwalk.
No,
into the-
we'll make the barefoot people build their own wall, and they will not climb that wall barefoot.
We'll make the podiatrist pay for it.
So, Rachel, before we let you out of here, because I know you got to get to work, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on, making
Thank
us
you for
laugh.
asking me. I got to say, you guys, I mean, the fact that you guys wanted to talk to me here on this show in particular, you guys are so great and you have such a huge reach. And it's really, I mean, the fact that you even know who I am makes me really happy. And thank you for having
You bring
me come
me
in.
joy. Like, I got to say, like, I need you on a frequent basis just for your perspective and your ability to deliver a clear thought and it to feel intellectual and not just clickbait or, to feel like you're just doing things for attention, right? Like, I need that. I want to take you down the path of helping people who are watching this understand, because I think in the Flint issue and what we just talked about in the Mississippi thing and North Carolina, and you being much more articulate than anybody else in this program.
I mean, not everybody, man.
She's crushing you, bro.
I know she is. I've held my own.
She's crushing you. Just take the L.
Where'd you go to college again, Rachel?
I went to Stanford.
Stanford. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Crushing.
I went to Maryland though. We're up to like a.
She said-
You see this? You see this? This was her fist on crush.
What about your PhD?
Oxford.
Yo, bring this guy back to life. Get the defibrillator out. Bow, bow, bow.
May I remind you, unrated Western New England morning radio, though.
Oh no,
Come
my
on.
radio credentials are crushing you.
See?
But
Crush.
That's
Hold
it.
the L. Hug the L.
Don't give him a pass, Rachel.
All right, give me the L. Give me the biggest L. But she got her PhD from Oxford.
Hug L.
I have a
Said L, hug it.
I have a player haters
If
degree.
L had a scrotum sack, lick that scrotum sack and hug.
That L was big.
Woo. Can you the difficulty in wrapping your brains around the president's ability and federal government's ability to step in on state level, most people don't understand. They don't get Obama, do something in Flint. What's going on? This Mississippi law, North
I
Carolina.
asked you the same question.
Why
I was
can't
like-
someone do something? Can you help people who don't understand that?
Yeah, I mean, the president isn't the king. President can't step in and do everything everywhere, but there are things the federal government can do. For example, Mississippi, one of the things that I broke in Mississippi is that Mississippi may have decided that it's now legal statewide to say, we won't hire gay people or we won't serve you, whatever. But that may violate some federal non-discrimination rules. And so the Department of Transportation, the Department of Education, all these other federal agencies that provide billions of dollars to Mississippi, which does not have very many billions of dollars, they are now, as federal agencies, saying, oh, we may cut you off.
They try to do that in Atlanta too, right?
And they try to do that in all of these. They may be doing. They're now evaluating. They may be doing that. And if a state like well, in a state like North Carolina or Mississippi, North Carolina is pretty well off in terms of finances, but Mississippi is poor. Mississippi is a very poor state. And if the federal government takes billions of dollars away from them because of this discrimination law, that may pressure them into changing it. Now, that is not the same thing as the president coming in and saying, I am the king. You cannot have this law. But it is, I mean, that's sort of what they can do. The Department of Justice may sue them over the law, but without Congress passing a non-discrimination law, what are you going to sue them on the basis of?
So in the case of North Carolina, where you have Bank of America in North Carolina, you have, I think BMW has a plant in North Carolina. You have a lot of companies went in there because of the Research Triangle and all of the major universities and quality of life. So a lot of businesses, finance companies went there. Should we be looking to hold those companies accountable for making sure that this state?
Well, the companies, including Bank of America, have actually been putting more pressure on those states because of these laws than anybody else. I mean, that's actually been the most effective pressure against it. So not all of the Southern governors, all the Republican legislatures all around the country are passing these discrimination laws now. It's like the new flavor of the month. It's like the Ted Cruz variety of Republican politics is overt discrimination. We must have this, or Christians aren't having their special rights or whatever. And in states where the governor has said no, it's been because business community has been pushing them. And so in North Carolina, they got so much pressure from the business community, including like the NBA was going to pull the All-Star game and all this stuff. And so the governor tried to like half take it back. Like he signed that law. It's in effect in North Carolina. And then he signed an executive order saying, I didn't really mean the terrible sounding parts of it. Like, can we please have all of our business back now? And no, you can't. You actually now have to get the legislature to repeal the law, you dingus.
So people are watching.
People are watching. The business community has been really progressive on this.
My last thing I have is, have you ever flipped on Fox News and thought, I know I'm on the right side of the issues, because how can the art direction for this channel be so bad? Like, why is it that conservative-minded people have the worst fucking looking graphics in the world? That shit looks so roach.
It was only me that thought that.
No, it shit is the most roach-looking channel. Like, come on, like everyone else.
It's so loud and bright and
bootleg. Like MSNBC looks good. Even CNN. I'm not into a lot of what they're doing right now, but looks clean. ESPN looks clean. Yeah. Everyone has someone clean who does their thing. It's like Fox News don't even think about it. Like, just have Barney do it. Barney's been running the website since it was a CompuServe page, and he's still the one doing it right now.
Conservatives don't like change.
No.
Right? They don't like change. They're like, listen, this worked in the 90s. Just keep it. Don't upset people.
We want to make sure you can still view it on your AOL browser.
Yeah.
Like,